Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to work with Jessica, or under her as my boss. Give us the context. Give what brought you here. Who are you, and what made you? I know that's a lot of questions, but yeah, can you give us the context of your early years?
Sure. So I'd like to begin by saying, right, that where I am today is the result of caring individuals, programs, and also institutions. So I was born and raised in East Oakland by a single mother who emigrated to the United States from El Salvador, and she did so during the Civil War, right? And so when I think about where I am today, I attribute a lot of that to my mother, who is a strong woman and who fought to ensure that her children had the resources that we needed in order to be successful. When people ask me, who are you? I often say, I am my mother's daughter, right? And in order to understand who I am, it's really her journey, right? This is a woman who has fought, who crossed two borders on her own when she was 18 with no money. This is a woman who, during the Civil War, went back for her sister, went back for her brothers, and went back for her mother 3 times and set them up in the United States so that they could have a better life, right? And when you think about a woman who is 4'11", who worked and saved her money and then went and rescued her family, this is someone who is fearless, right? So this is my mother. And she raised 3 children in East Oakland in the projects, right? We grew up in the Tasa Faranga housing projects on 84th Avenue. And given the environment where we lived, she made sure that we had access to people and to programs who were going to set us up to be successful, right? And so another individual that had a tremendous impact on my life and my siblings is Mr. Tabuchi, who owns a dojo in Fremont. At the time, it was also in Hayward. And he gave my mother a discount for the 3 of us to learn Taekwondo. And here's why that matters. When you grow up in a violent environment, right, where there is not just community trauma, but generational trauma, right, the body keeps the score, right? So there is an enormous amount of stress that builds up. And whether she knew it or not, we had a physical outlet. Right? We did this for 10 years. So we not only learned to defend ourselves, we learned the discipline, and we had a physical outlet for a lot of the stress that we were experiencing due to instability, right? As it relates to programs, I was a part of Summer Search. I was a part of Upward Bound. I was a part of Puente. These are all college preparatory programs. And in their own unique way, their goal was to get low-income students of color to higher education, right? And the experiences that I had because of these programs were incredible, right? So I'm going to talk about Summer Search for a moment. So I had an opportunity at a young age to go to Dolphin Island, Alabama on a marine biology camp. I had an opportunity to do a 5-week volunteer and exchange program in Ghana, Africa, right? I had never been to Mexico or Central America, yet I was given the opportunity to have these experiences, which for me at a young age opened my eyes to the world, which is much bigger than what we think it is, right? Or than we know. And so, and as it relates to institutions, right? So my mother, benefited from affordable housing. My mother benefited from the Section 8 program. My mother was on welfare, right? And these are the programs that help my mother be able to provide a stable environment for us to take advantage of the programs and also the individuals in our lives that helped us break the cycle of poverty. Right. So when I think about, why I'm here, right, at La Plaza, it's not, it's a lot of hard work, and I did not do it alone. Right. I had a lot of help along the way. And this is where I also like to give a disclaimer because it matters, right? My family, we are light-skinned Latinos. People, programs, and institutions wanted to help my family. I cannot say that that was always the case for our Black brothers and sisters who grew up in the same neighborhood. And I state that because I think it's important, right, in our conversations, especially with what has happened recently, to understand why it's important that we talk about race and equity.
Could you give us a little context about kind of what brought you to an executive director position? What brought you to the School of Arts and Culture? Why have you landed there, and what are the critical things that got you there?
Sure. So again, for me, it's been people who have opened doors and the willingness to learn new things and hard work, right? So because of Summer Search, I had the opportunity after graduating from college to be an intern, and it was a paid internship at Public Advocates. And the people at Public Advocates and the CEO at the time opened the door for me to then become a paralegal at the ACLU Immigrant Rights Project. And the reason why all this matters is I didn't have the experience. They had asked me to write a cover letter and a resume, and I had given it to the woman who was championing me at Public Advocates for this position at the ACLU. She rewrote it for me, right? It was day and night, and it was the thing that opened the door. I had, Jamie, who at the time was leading Public Advocates, pick up the phone and have a conversation with Lucas, who was leading the ACLU Immigrant Rights Project at the time, and say to him, you have to give her an opportunity. You have to interview her. She has the attitude, she's willing to work hard, and what she doesn't know, she's going to learn it, right? And she is going to do better. And so early on, that set me up for a career in the nonprofit sector. And what I always knew growing up, right, is that, there was a tremendous amount of responsibility to be able to pay that forward, right? And so I wanted to continue my career in the nonprofit sector. And there were a few things that I knew. I knew that for a person to be leading an organization, right, that is working in communities like East San Jose and Mayfair, there has to be a deep understanding of what our families are facing. What I also understood is that in order for an organization to be successful, the people within it have to be taken care of, right? The folks that you bring on the team, it's important for them to have a lived experience. It's important for their values to align with the values of the organization. And it's also important for the organization to take care of their employees. And so I'm talking about a living wage. I'm talking about being very transparent in terms of the benefits that we can offer our folks. And the importance of not waiting for them to advocate for it, because unless they've learned it, they don't know how to advocate, right? And so the importance of offering it up front, because the work that is being done is hard work, right? And so when I think about the work that we're doing here in East San Jose is not much different from the community where I grew up. And so tremendously important, right, to be working here alongside our team and our co-lead, Vanessa Shi, and to be doing the work that we are doing, right? It's not one single individual.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what you're immersed in now, and what propels you forward. So giving everybody a little bit of context, tomorrow, Jessica and Vanessa will most likely sign a $10 million contract to buy the building across the street and to expand the services of the plaza. And before we ever thought to do that, we were, pre-pandemic, we were sometimes at a 12 to 18 month waiting list to get a space here for a theater or for a wedding, for your own personal event. And so that we're ready for the expansion. But Jess, I've watched people put up walls and kind of, in a sense, not feel that we should stay in our lane, that we are about arts and culture, and you should, work with glitter and paste and stick to that. But you've swatted all that down. And I just kind of want to dive into that a little bit. Like, what gives you the right to lean into this and take this chance and opportunity for your community? And why is that important to you?
Sure. So I'm going to give some context and then I'm going to get to the question, Chris. So Mayfair is in advanced stages of gentrification. And where La Plaza is located, we are a 7-minute drive to downtown San Jose. We are a 10-minute drive to the new Google campus, which is going to change the landscape in San Jose and in Mayfair, right? Mayfair is going to be the next Japantown. And organizations like La Plaza contribute to gentrification unless we are actively informing the built environment. And so as a cultural organization, as an arts organization that sees over 150,000 people a year through the activation of this space, we have a responsibility to be very clear with our cross-sector partners, with our community, with our city, with our county, in terms of the type of development that we want to see here, right? And so as an arts and cultural organization, and the thing is, this isn't new. It's not new in New York. It's not new in LA. It's not new in Chicago. You have arts and cultural organizations taking an active role in the development that is taking place in their community. And so listen, for the past 10 years, when the school took over La Plaza, we are the permanent operators of the Mexican Heritage Plaza. We focus our program internally, right? Our task was to prove that a Latino-led organization could manage a 6-acre facility and be successful, right? That we could have a diverse revenue model and take care of the needs that we needed to take care of here. During the pandemic, what we were able to demonstrate is that this cultural and arts organization, which has significant meaning in this community, when you think about Blanca Alvarado, when you think about Cesar Chavez and one of the first grocery store boycotts, which took place here before it was La Plaza, this is a community gem, right? And during the pandemic, what we were able to demonstrate is we have a team and we've got a place where we can easily adapt to meet the moment, right? So we became a vaccination site. We were a testing site before that. And we also were a food distribution site. And so we were able to demonstrate, hey, we're not just doing work internally, we are now starting to bleed outside of La Plaza walls. Now, what Chris is referring to in terms of the acquisition of the property across the street, we are putting a stake on the ground now. We are actively doing work outside of La Plaza walls. And it is important for us to do that in order to mitigate the challenges that our community is facing when you think about the new development that is taking place in San Jose, right? And so for us, and I see Raimundo is here, we, in partnership with Gardner Health Services, are going to take a property off the market, of which 70 to 85% for the past 7 years has been empty and blighted, and are going to put it to good use. So through our partnership with Gardner Health Services, we're going to be able to offer a family wellness center that focuses on mental health services. And we're also going to be able to expand our programming for both the local community and the creative sector with a black box theater, with a cafe, with rehearsal spaces. And so we're taking a building, right, that is going to generate money, right, here in Mayfair for our local community and our creative sector, while also offering social services that are needed in this neighborhood, right? And so that's why we're doing what we're doing.
You talked a little bit about gentrification and displacement, and you talked about Google. Why why this movement towards a cultural district? Because in a sense, when you mention Japantown, everybody considers Japantown in a way a cultural district, even without the government in some capacity, state or fed, claiming it's been given that right. But all of us consider Japantown a cultural district in its own way, and a locally grown place. Why the area with Little Portugal, Mayfair, Little Saigon? Why do that here? And what do you see the reasons?
Sure. So what Chris is talking about, right? So the acquisition of the property across the street is the first step for us. We have other development projects in mind. In addition, we are doing this under the umbrella of championing a cultural district here in San Jose. And via the partnership with our creative partners, we're going to go for 3, Japantown and Sofa Market. The reason why it matters and the urgency behind this is, if done right, with local policies that protect our neighborhood and our residents, we have an opportunity to preserve the culture, the traditions, the diversity of East San Jose, and in particular, the Mayfair community where La Plaza is located. And the significance of that is, if we don't want to lose what makes us uniquely San Jose, we have to be able to champion local policies that will protect the vibrancy that is found here in this community, right? And as to the urgency, why now? If we don't take these properties off the market and put them to good use, if we wait 5 years from now, we're too late, right? And I will say this, right? So the development that's taken place in Japantown is changing Japantown. The housing that is being developed in Japantown is not affordable, it's market rate. That is going to change the community, right? And so for us, the lesson here on the East Side is we have to be very thoughtful. And it's got to be a multi-pronged approach so that we are able to champion a cultural district with the right policies that will protect our community so that we can preserve it.
So with that 30,000 square feet across the street and the purchase of that building, you're going to be retaining the businesses within that space. 2, you'll be adding a black box theater and a cafe and rehearsal spaces. And 3, you'll be doing the kind of family wellness mixed with this kind of arts and cultural 6-acre facility across the street. And within that facility, why do it that way? Why lean on those, why move in that direction with those 3 pieces put together? Because I don't know too many examples of where arts and culture hits the family wellness, then hits local small business.
So for us, right, I'm going to start with the local businesses. We want to be able to ensure that they have the space where they continue to thrive, right? So we want to retain the local businesses that are currently in that building. As it relates to SOAC's programming, Chris alluded to this earlier, right? So pre-pandemic levels, we were booking this space 1 to 2 years in advance. And so it makes sense for us to expand to across the street to be able to offer a creative and cultural space where our partners can activate it, right? So they don't have to worry about finding space. There is a space here for them to practice their, artistic form. As it relates to the cafe, right? We often talk about, we wish that there was like a Royce station where we could go get our cafe, where we didn't have to get in our car to drive, right? Right now, the cafes that are here, you've got to get in the car, are Starbucks, right? And we don't want that. And so we are looking for a partner, right? A local partner who can offer that for our community. As it relates to Gardner's Family Wellness Center, during the pandemic, this has been pre-pandemic, we know that this community, right, that there is generational and community trauma. And it is incredibly important, as taboo as it is in our cultura, to have a professional that you can talk with in order to process the trauma so that, folks can show up as their best selves, right? Now, during the pandemic, it got worse, right? You had, our kids weren't in school, they were at home. Parents had to go out to work and they fell behind academically, right? And there was incredible amount of stress in our families here. And so I will say, right, of all the partners, when we got the call from the Alum Rock Union School District that there were suicides that were happening, we reached out to a couple of partners because we wanted to get counselors into the schools. And the one who stepped up was Raimundo and his team. It was Gardner Health Services who stepped up and ensured, and they were, I don't know, Raimundo, if y'all got paid. Like, they're like, we will figure that out later, but there is a crisis and we have an opportunity to respond, and they responded. Now, the reason why it matters, right? When I think about Raimundo, his leadership and the organization that he leads, here is a Latino, right, who is running an agency that is majority Latino, right? Focused on our farm workers, focused on our Latino community, who partnered with us during the pandemic to offer testing and vaccination. And so the partnership just made sense, right? And so we reached out to Gardner. And when we think about the work that we do in this community, we serve two communities. We serve the local community and also the creative sector, right? And we all need mental health services. Our creative sector and our local community need mental health services. And so it makes sense, right, for us to come together in the way that we did.
All right. I'm going to take you to, I think it's my last question, but it's a double question.
Okay.
What is phase 2 on the 6 acres that the school sits on? Okay. And what does the future look like in 10 to 15 years if all of these dreams and vision comes true?
All right. Okay. So here at La Plaza, we are very fortunate to manage, 6 acres, right? And given the needs of the community, given the space that we have, there is an opportunity to develop on the gravel lot. So there's an opportunity for us to build commercial space for local businesses, for social services, for a local restaurant. On the Keene parking lot, there is an opportunity to build a garage with a park at the top that will serve this community, right? And on our Keene lot, there is an opportunity to build affordable housing. And when you think about La Plaza, when you think about the work that we've done, right, in this neighborhood, in partnership with the Si Se Puede Collective, in partnership with our creative sector, in partnership with Gardner Health Services, this is the next step. There is an opportunity to take advantage of the space here in order to meet the needs of a community. And when you think about the markers of a cultural district, it is, where La Plaza is located, right, at the corner of Alum Rock and Keene. Can you imagine that activation? You've got San Antonio Elementary School. You've got affordable housing. And if we're able to pass a local preference policy, our residents are able to take advantage of that. You have a parking garage with a park at the top that can take advantage of the parking needs in our community. And if built right, when we no longer need the parking, you can use that space in a different way. And then you have the gravel lot, right? More space for local businesses, for social services, so that this is a community that is thriving, right? This is a community that has access to the services that they need, and it's walkable. And we also have BART that's going to be built on Alum Rock Avenue, right? Which will be the connection to downtown San Jose and other areas in the South Bay. And so it just makes sense, right? And the example of this is what Unity Council has been able to do at Fruitville Station. That is the example of what we are trying to create here.
That's awesome. That's a lot. I wanted to turn it back to you guys to have any questions. I see a few hands up, so let's move into the phase of Q&A.